to work with Docker and how to develop applications using Docker. Docker is containerized based approach in which we work with various containers. Suppose if you want to develop an application using PHP, MySQL or Apache, then we need to create two containers, one for PHP, Apache to run Apache and one for MySQL. Let's understand this with a simple PHP example. To run any application using Docker, first you need to install the Docker. Whether you are using Windows platform, Windows operating system, Linux operating system or Mac operating system, you need to install the Docker on your system. I'm using Windows platform, so I install the Docker desktop for that, and here you can see my Docker is running. Now I need to develop a simple application. I developed a simple application using PHP. You can see here I developed a simple PHP application. To run a Docker application, a Docker file play an important role. Application I have created a sample. In this sample application, I have created a Docker compose file with .yml extension. So YML is a scripting language to write the scripts. It's just like JSON format. In JSON, we use curly braces, but in YAML scripting, we use indentations. So it's very easy to understand how we need to write the code and need to mention what kind of services we are going to use within the application. For example, I have written this simple YAML Docker compose file in which in first line I mention the version 3.8 and then services. Then whatever services you are using in your application, you have to mention those services. For example, in this sample application, I am using PHP and MySQL. So for PHP web, and here there is an image. There is an image tag which indicates like I am using here PHP 8.0 Apache version, and this indicates I am pulling this image from Docker Hub. All the images are stored on cloud, Docker Cloud, hub.docker.com, and volumes mentions our application path. In .src, our application resides, and this is the container path. Within the where www.html, this is the container path here. Our application files will be stored in container. Then we need to use the ports. Here I used 8081 to run our application. And if there is any dependency, then we need to mention that depends on DB. Then we need to mention the network, how the network connectivity work with containers. Second, I'm using here second image MySQL 8.0, and here I mentioned the environment, MySQL password, database, username, and password, and volumes where the database file will be stored in the container. So this is very simple Docker compose file I have written for this application. Now to run the application, we don't need to install all these softwares on our local machine. Here, using Docker compose file, we are using all the dependencies required for the particular application from hub.docker.com. Before you start your application, your Docker must be run. Here my Docker is running, and now I will go to my application folder. This is my application folder. To add the file so that I can change it vi src index. Remember, in Docker Compose file, we mentioned the path of our application files within src. That's why I'm updating this file. Here, I need to update this file. The text file. If I run this file, this application, it should show this text. Localhost 8081. That means our Docker is not working. Containers are not working. So for that, we need to run a command. First, we need to check whether Docker is working or not. So there is a command for that, docker ps. It will show the containers, list of containers. So right now, no container is running in a running state. That's why our application is not working. To run our application, we need to run this command, docker compose up. This will up our containers. This will use the Docker YAML file, Docker compose file, and based on that, this will run the containers. So after running this command, the containers for Apache or MySQL created. Now if we access our application, it should work. It's working fine, right? Now I need to change this text in this application to verify that it's running on Docker, using Docker. This application is running using Docker. Let's refresh the page. This application is running using Docker. So if we want to see the list of containers, how many containers are running within our application to run this application. So for that, we need to use the docker ps command. See, here two containers are running. So every container has its own unique ID, which is container ID. So our PHP is Apache is running on with this container ID, and MySQL have this container ID. If you want to down the application, for that we need to run the command docker compose down. This command will stop and remove the containers. Basically, there 3 containers were running, and after running the command docker compose down, all 3 containers stopped and get removed. Again, if you want to run your application, now if you want to access the application, it won't be accessible because you stop the containers. Now again, if you want to run the application, we need to run the docker compose up command. Again, all 3 containers created, and now if you want to access our application, it's accessible. See, it's working. It's very easy to work with any application using Docker. We can run any application using Docker, whether you want to work with Node.js, modern technologies, Python, Java, Golang, we can run any application using Docker. Docker is one of the most important and trending technology which is adopted by top companies and it is in trend. That's why I'm trying to keep your attention towards these technologies. So we should follow the concept, learn, implement, and share with others. I hope you understood the concept. Let's implement and keep learning and sharing.